Welcome to the Retay Roundtable podcast, brought to you by Retay USA. I'm your host, Jesse. Hey, I'm trying to record a podcast over here.
So why switch to Retay?
Sounds like drill.
Perfect. All right. First time in Maryland, in the Retay Studios. This is a big deal. We're here at the Molly's event. I know the last podcast we were talking about it. Today is the first day of the Molly's event. We got two knuckleheads in studio. Welcome, Dr. Duck, Dennis Loosier, and the Fowl Hunter, Billy Campbell, in studio for the very first time. Actually, first time at the new digs, new Retay facilities, right?
Oh, yeah.
Pretty cool.
Digs, man.
Digs, man. We're getting there.
Big time, bro.
Hey, we got a studio now.
Right.
Yeah.
It's awesome, too.
Yeah.
Even the warehouse is awesome. It's a lot. Last time we was here, it's kind of grown into a bigger warehouse out there. Like a person can actually get lost.
It's quadrupled, actually.
Right.
So things have been going pretty quick around here. But, you know, and to honestly, let's be very, very blatantly honest about this, okay? Your guys' success is a quick adaptation to what we're doing, and we appreciate you guys so much. We're glad. This is the third time you've been on the podcast with us on the Roundtable. We're also going to be dubbing this back. So introduce the Dr. Duck podcast.
Right?
Yeah.
I mean, this is like the full meal deal.
It is.
Combo package. Yeah, so you can listen to it here with our friends at Retay.
Yep.
And you also catch it on the Dr. Duck Waterfowl podcast.
Absolutely. Coming out at the same time. We're going to coordinate and drop it at the same time.
And like in this great studio on YouTube too.
That is true. This is our first effort back at trying to actually record this, video it, get it up on YouTube, and make it seamless this time.
Right.
Producer Hunter's got his job cut out for him.
Producer Hunter. That's got a nice ring to it.
And Producer Hunter back behind the lights, being creepy as always, hanging out. So, hey, real quick, we're gonna kick this off. We're at the Molly's anniversary sale this weekend. Got Billy and Dennis in town. One thing. We got to clear this up. We have a brand new merch website that's out there. We want to make sure everybody's able to get to it. RetayNation.com. We got a bunch of new merch up there. We got some hats coming on the way. We got some T-shirts, some long sleeve shirts. We got dog bowls. We got playing cards. We got just about anything you want. Okay.
A hunting journal.
We have a hunting journal, which, by the way, on the back of the hunting journal has a one quote from a Billy Campbell.
Something about a journey.
Enjoy the journey, right? So it's a really cool place. Make sure you jump over and see it. Always go over to Retay USA. Sign up for our new email list. We got that going out right now. Producer Hunter also is producing the email list. That's about as much Retay talk as we've ever done on this thing. Head over to the YouTube. Head to Instagram, Dr. Duck Co. Instagram, Dr. Duck, Fowl Hunter. We'll get through all that stuff later on. But let's kick this thing off with one blatant question.
Uh-oh.
What are y'all shooting this year? 12s or 20s?
Oh, how did I know that was going to be the question?
Well, well, we always used to, if people listen to our podcast, they know I like the 12 gauge and I like shooting the candlesticks 3.5.
Yes, sir.
But here recently, working with you guys in our conversation today, you have talked me into trying the 20 this year.
At least giving it an opportunity, right?
Right. Giving it an opportunity. The things that you told me made a lot of sense. And so for our people who are listening, I would like for you to circle back around on that conversation that you and I had and explain the difference.
Well, we started this conversation
between
last
the 12
year
and
too.
the 20.
Yep, we did. And Billy did a little testing last year too.
That's right.
Yep.
Remember when we let...
Well, he don't do too much testing because he's doing too much bird watching. So this year I can tell you it's going to be I'm going to really test it out to the max.
So I think the conversation started with us last year. And it was like, man, I shoot 3.5 inch and that's all I'll ever shoot, right? I shoot 12 gauge. I shoot this, I shoot that. And I said, well, look, it's been 4 years since I've shot a 12 gauge and I've been shooting a 20 gauge ever since. I'm not saying it's right or it's wrong, comfortable. It's just like being at the plate, right? Baseball guys. You might swing a 32 sometimes, but the day you feel a little gunsty, you're going to swing a 33, right?
Right.
So it really comes down to preference and everything. I'm not telling anybody to go out and run and get, sell your 12 gauge and go get a 20 gauge because it's better. I just say that there's one big main difference in a 12 and a 20. One is that you're not losing any kinetic energy as far as the shot goes itself, okay? You guys like to shoot number 3s and number 4s. number two sometimes, right? You shoot twos mostly, right?
Well, you know, us being on the road too, we have to do some type of a universal shot and gun. Because, you know, one day we might be in a timber that's in a tide hole, and then the next day we might be in an open field with wind blowing 25 miles an hour.
Absolutely.
So when you're on the road like we are, you just kind of, you got to compensate for all of it. And you kind of got to go over on one extreme because we're probably over on the timber.
Yep.
But there again, we can make an adjustment when we're in the open water.
Field, right.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So that's the reason why.
Absolutely. So let's just call it number twos. We're going to say it's number twos, okay? So a number two pellet size is a number two pellet size, whether it's in a 10 gauge or if it's in a 410.
Right.
Actually, I don't think they make 410 number twos, but say it's in a 28 gauge, okay? They're the same exact size pellet. Now, 10 years ago, velocity didn't work the same way it does now. Technology in shot shells, when you guys shooting black clouds, you know, that has a 1,500-foot velocity. Well, the difference is that from a 12-gauge velocity and a 20-gauge velocity, there's no difference, okay? So they're both 1,500 feet per second.
Right.
So technically, you're moving a number two size pellet 1,500 feet per second out of a 12 or a 20. Okay, so kinetic energy-wise, you're on the same path. Now, I'm sure there's a lot of ballistic technology guys out there who are going to roast me on this because normally you can't say anything without the internet going crazy anyway.
Right. Good point.
But 9%, okay, let's just round it out to 10%, right? 10% of pellet difference between a 12 and a 20, 3-inch. Now, going to a 3.5, you're going to pick up some more, okay? But inside of that 10% difference, you're really only talking 27 to 32 pellets, okay?
Right, that's all you're losing.
That's all you're losing, right? So you're moving the same size pellet at the same speed, and there's only 10% average difference, right?
But what if you're a guy that needs that?
You might need it. Now, Billy points to you on this one. You need everything you can get, right? You're going to need all the help you can get. But good news is, with a 20 gauge, you already have a tighter diameter of a barrel, right?
Right.
So the first thing a lot of people do, y'all screw your kicks chokes in, right?
Right.
Most probably at a full or an extra full or whatever it may be. If you have an extra full choke in a 12 gauge, bore diameter maybe somewhere around 680, okay, 0.680. A modified choke in a 20 gauge is actually going to be at 0.9595. So just out of a modified choke, you're already gaining 0.08% constriction out of a 20 gauge barrel as you are a 12 gauge barrel. Okay, so you're getting a lot denser of a pattern. Sometimes that helps and sometimes it doesn't. It really helps is on smaller shot pellets. Okay, so number 4s, number 5s, if you're shooting a bismuth or something like that, or number 3s even. We always joke about this and people talk about shooting BBs.
Right.
Like 3.5-inch BBs through a 12 gauge. It's all we shoot, right? Well, that BB is a very big pellet. And what you're doing is taking a lot of those big pellets and you're forcing it down into a very tight area. So that creates a lot of spin, a lot of flyers, what people call it in their pattern. And it creates, you know, potentially a 35 to 48-inch pattern, but it's got a lot of gaps in it, okay?
Right.
So a duck, really not that big of an animal when you come down to it. A 6-inch, 8-inch gap inside of a pattern, that's a complete miss sometimes, right? So
especially if it's a teal.
Especially if it's teal, right? Because, I mean, God, what are you talking, 8 inches total on that bird? And they're flat and they're, 2-3 inches high? So they could sneak through a pattern pretty easily. Even when you dust a bird and you feel like you're on it, and a lot of times guys are like, man, I don't understand what's going on. Well, it's because you don't have a nice uniform pattern to it. So dropping down a little bit in size in the 20 gauge, you're actually going to get a much more uniform pattern. So if you're only losing 35 pellets, well, those 35 pellets may not make a big difference because now you've got good coverage on it, right? The turkey hunting world, we get into patterns way too deep. Now, I'm a pattern junkie. We've talked about on the podcast before, but I want to see complete coverage, right? I don't want to see a bunch of balled up wads or anything like that because in a turkey, you might be talking a 2-inch hole in your pattern. Might be a miss, right? So you want that good complete pattern. That's all I'm saying for the 20 gauge. That's it.
So
that's my 20 gauge push.
If I am that guy that needs couple extra pellets in there, what am I going to gain by moving from let's say a 2-shot to a 3-shot in a 20 gauge?
You're going to gain potentially another 50 to 80 pellets. Now, size-wise, they're smaller, okay? So you're not going to have the kinetic energy as a big of a 2 would be versus a 3 or 4, but you're going to gain that pellet size because you're putting smaller pellets in the same amount. A 3-inch 20 gauge has the same size capacity no matter what. It's only a 3-inch 20 gauge, right? So if you're talking about putting 4 1-inch balls into a bucket or 80 half-inch balls, it's the same surface size, right? So you're going to have as many things you can get into that small area, but the bigger the size, the less the pellet, right? Because it's going to take up more space. So Anyway, that's my tech talk of the day here.
Well, you convinced me today. We've talked about this majority of the day, and so I'm going to give it a shot.
Okay.
I'm always open to trying new stuff, and as we always talk about on our podcast, if you're hunting with other guys, always stay open-minded and
absolutely
willing to learn and make changes. And I think this is going to be a great example for me. Talk about how would you say it? Preaching.
Practice what you preach.
Yeah.
So practice what you preach.
So I'm going to try it. I'm going to do the 20 gauge. Start out with
I like it
and see what we can do on it.
I love it.
On a good day, Jesse.
Yep.
I would tell you that I could kill a duck with a rock.
Oh, Lord.
Now, listen to me.
Here we go.
The work that he puts. Look, I'm trying to compliment you, and you still over here talking trash. Just listen up. The work that he goes in to understanding how these birds are going to work in this hole we're going to hunt tomorrow. He talks about it all the time. We talk about it all the time. Scouting. You scout. Historically, I'm trying to find birds. Historically, on his end, he going to sit there. He going to figure out a whole bunch of stuff.
Studying. That's why he's a doctor.
So we come in very prepared that day.
Absolutely.
My deal is I like working birds.
Yep.
So if he does his job really good and I do my job really good and the ducks cooperate that day, we don't take a lot. We take some really close.
Yeah. High percentage shots.
High percentage.
High percentage shots.
I may shoot only 6 shells.
Yeah.
I am not half the shot this man is. That guy can shoot. But you know what? I could take the worst shot on the block, Jack. He going to kill birds.
At 10 yards.
Not that everything always works right, but when it does work right.
Yep.
That testing I did the end of last season, my biggest concern, I would say, was when you got a volley that comes in, you got 5, 6 guys, you shoot, you got a couple birds that are trying to get out at the end of the deal. That's a lot of fun for me to try and get those birds.
Oh, yeah. Cleanup, man.
My concern with the 20 gauge was, am I going to be able to reach out and still get them?
Yep.
Last year, we had 7 birds working the hole. We were hunting we had a hunter. Goose was shooting his first mallard. Nate was in the hole with us. Them 7 birds come in, 6 of them hit the water. There was that one, and it just so happened to be a hen too, by the way. But she was trying to get out, and I had let Goose use my 12 gauge, and I carried the 20. And I thought, this is exactly how it went. There's no way. As I'm throwing it on my shoulder, I'm going to take the shot anyway. And one shot, her on the way out, it was I don't know how many yards it was, but it was longer than any other shots we took today.
Yep.
Folded her up. And that's when I was like, Jesse may have been right.
It's not a right or versus wrong thing, right? Like it's a feeling thing, and it just we had a lot of conversation. Right. By the way, it's late tonight. We're on on the end of a full day at we spent 10 hours up there today.
But I tell you, being a public land hunter is you're always the number one thing for me, and especially getting a little bit older. You're trying to cut as much weight as you possibly can.
Yeah.
Because you're doing these walk-ins.
Yep.
And that 20 gauge,
6 pounds, 2 ounces.
It's the Gordian 20 gauge is 6 pounds, 2 ounces. Yep.
I have a pellet gun at home that weighs more than that 20 gauge.
Yep. 6
and
pounds,
I'm being
7
serious.
ounces.
Yeah.
It is the Moss and Mar 20 gauge.
So to me, it's a no-brainer for me not to try it. And
I like to broaden people's horizons. I like to bring the conversation up, right? But you made a great point, Billy. Talking about patterning guns. This is my biggest thing in the world. I try to preach patterning because at the end of the day, you guys do a ton of work. You do a lot of scouting. You do a lot of resourceful things to get to that point. But the one thing, guys can do that any day. There's a lot of great scouters out there. There's a lot of guys that understand public land hunting. There's a lot of guys
better than we are at it, So
absolutely.
It's just, it takes time to do all that. But there again, also, Billy's right on one thing. I don't like taking long shots. And we talk about it too, is the reason we don't is because 9 times out of 10, those birds end up wounded. Yep. And if you're hunting water, they outswim your dog. You take more time than you got 2 or 3 guys chasing a wounded bird, running through the trees or wherever. And it just takes away from other birds coming in. You lose opportunities that way.
100%.
So it's better to get them in, take those closer shots. You got quicker retrieves. Everybody's back in their position, and you're waiting on the next volley to get there.
Absolutely. So you've done all that work, right? You've got to that point. You've scouted. You found the bird. You scouted. You're out there absolutely doing everything you can. What what I've seen in talking with guys in service and talking to guys on the phone, we get a lot of guys who just call Retay just to talk sometimes. Okay. And I love it. Don't get me wrong. Like I love to hunt. I love to be outdoors. I love to shoot. Right. So anytime I get to talk to somebody about it, it's like, man, we'll sit there for half an hour and talk about it. Right. The number one thing for us that I feel that doesn't happen, you go all that way. And the one thing that matters is when you pull the trigger.
Right.
95% of waterfowl hunters have no idea what that looks like. Even at 20 yards, they don't pattern their guns, right?
Right.
You pick up a gun, you're like, oh man, I shoot this, and this is what we're going to shoot this year, right?
Right.
So you've done all that work to get to that point, and now when it matters, it's like closing a baseball game out, right? If you didn't watch any of it, what's the four-hitter done that day? You have no idea. So now you're going into it blind, right? So take the time and the opportunity just to shoot literally one shell. Right. One shell on paper to know what it looks like.
And honestly, we did a video last year, and
another one just last week.
And last week, and honestly, we're part of that 95% guy because we didn't do it. You know, we got our shells and our gun, and we just hit the duck hole. You know, now we try to take time, and we did do the 20 gauge, and so it impressed me. And we did. I think we tested it out at what 25 and 30 or 25 35, something like that. It's on the YouTube channel. But anyways, I was very impressed. Yeah. And the pattern that to reaffirm what everybody you was talking about earlier, it was a solid.
Yep. Solid coverage, right? That's what you're looking for, is a good solid coverage, because you come all that way, you spend all that time, all that gas, all that boat, to do one thing, right? Pull the trigger. Which also we laugh about a ton is when we talk about gear. You guys use some great gear, right?
Right.
We talk about guys who they'll buy a $100,000 truck to pull a $50,000 boat with $25,000 decoys with a $3,000 gun, $1,000 pair of waders. And what do you think they're going to put in their gun? A $4 box of shells. And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that.
Being a duck hunter.
It's expensive, right?
Right.
But all of that time and money you've put together to get to that point, and the one thing that matters, you complain about. We hear it all the time. You go into a store and guys are like, I ain't spending that much on a box of shells. That's the one thing that means something at the end of the day when you come down to it, right?
It's a really good point.
Yeah. That and leaky waders.
You can still buy a $1,000 pair of waders and still have leaky waders. Yeah. But we spend so much time and money and energy into this game, and the one thing that matters when you come down to it, people are like, man, I ain't spending more than $10 on a box of shells.
Right.
You know what I mean? So it blows my mind sometimes when a dog's expensive. Everything you got in is expensive.
And I was that guy you're talking about. We both come from very humble, very modest backgrounds, and for years, I would order what we needed for shells in advance, and I would absolutely buy the cheapest, the best 100%. Deal I could find.
Yeah.
Over time, we realized, you know, when you first starting out, we talk about it all the time. We didn't have nobody showing us the ropes.
Man.
If I'd have had you 30 years ago, where would we be now?
Oh, yeah.
Should we still be broke? Because I didn't have any money to buy them either. I still buying $4 box of shells, trust me.
But I'll never forget it. We had started figuring, you know what, if I could make sure this bird is completely dead with one shot on the borderline shots or whatever, you know, that really the best example was shooting a wounded bird on the water.
Right. And that to me, that tells me if the shell, and it's took me a while to learn this, but it tells me if the shell's really quality or not.
Right.
And those shells that we were shooting for so many years, because they were cheapest, you might have to cycle 2 or 3 to shoot a duck that was on the water.
We wasted more than that.
On occasion.
We had some very expensive ducks at the end of the day.
Absolutely.
So we figure as much as we're shooting to make sure these birds are dead, kill them, shoot them again, head still up, whatever, maybe we could invest in a better shell. And we started investing in better shells. And he kept shooting the better shells. I still stuck with the cheap shells. Yep. We ended up in a hunting spot. It was the last day of the year. And every bird we worked that day was picture perfect.
Nice.
But there weren't a lot of birds. So we were waiting on birds a lot that day.
Right.
He didn't have very many shells with him shot out. It's the last. You're not going to go buy a bunch of shells for the last day.
Of course not. You find whatever ones you find in the back of your truck.
Right. You got shells? Yeah, I got shells. So I hand him what I've been shooting, the cheap shells, and he'd been shooting the better shells.
Yep.
And the next duck that come through, he emptied his gun. And I'm telling you, he's a good shot.
Absolutely.
And he been calling me a poor shot forever. And he admitted that day, maybe you ain't as bad a shot as I say you are. Maybe you just shooting the trashiest shells I've ever seen in my life. And that was the last time we shot those shells.
Yeah.
And by the way, we're not being pretentious on this, right? It's not something we're downing anybody on.
No,
No, I ain't mentioned no shell brand or nothing.
No.
Yep. You guys shoot a high quality shell right now in Black Cloud.
Right.
It's a great shell.
And it's a true testimony, and it's on our videos too. If you go back and you watch from, basically from season 1 to now on the Black Cloud series, you can see the impact in the air that those shells produce. And then also we got a bunch of water swats in our videos too. And I'm just saying, instead of them bouncing off the water, they penetrate the water and they make a good, clean kill shot. And that's what you want.
Absolutely.
And Black Cloud, for some reason, their design or whatever they have, I'm not a shot shell person, more like you are. They do the job. And all I can tell you is when it comes out at my end of the barrel and it hits the target, whether it's in the air or on the water, it produces. So
energy, right? I mean, it produces. And the flight control stuff that's in there and everything else. It's a great show.
And they're not the only ones. And I mean,
of course.
I am a Black Cloud friend. That, the thing we do talk about, it does get a little dirty, and you do have to take care of your firearm.
Absolutely.
I've had to learn that the hard way too, because I was, not the best at cleaning it. But it does produce the combo that we have with the Retay, the Kicks Choke, the Black Cloud, and there's other great combos out there. I'm not saying it's the best,
absolutely,
but it's good for us.
Yep.
While we got a smart guy on here,
never claimed to be. By the way, never claimed to be. I'm not the Buddha of shotguns. Trust me, there's a lot of smart people out there. I'm just conveying the things I've learned, right? And conveying those things that come from people that are way smarter than me about stuff. And it light bulbs went off in my head.
So help me understand. So I did again just recently pattern multiple kicks, chokes with the Federal Black Cloud through the Retay Masimar 12 gauge.
Yep.
And when I look at all these, I started at 20 yards, which, to be honest with you, we take a lot of shots.
It's a high percentage shot. Absolutely.
Yeah. So what I'm looking for at that distance, I'm really looking for exactly what you're talking about. I'm looking for, we actually got a target that had a duck on it.
Nice.
So I could see the pellets, and I want coverage of that duck.
Absolutely.
Right? Obviously, the more open the choke, the wider that spread is going to be. But I did not see a significant difference.
Correct.
Between 20 and 40 yards.
Correct. Yes.
Now, when I remember talking, we've had Chuck from Kicks, great dude, another really smart guy.
Yeah.
And he was talking about 40 yards needs to be your mark.
Yeah.
And that really, I was reminded about that this weekend when I was doing what I was doing.
Pattern, yeah.
Because I did not see a significant difference until that 40-yard mark.
Yes.
One thing on the other pattern test we did that is already up on YouTube, the one thing that really stood out to me, Jesse was right. I know you probably like hearing it, was the high flyer extra full in the 20 gauge.
In the 20 gauge, yep.
Because at 44 yards, I think it was, the coverage, it was still, I want to say it was this tight.
Yeah.
At 40-something yards out of that 20 gauge.
You're talking, so extra full, you're probably at a 0.575 or a 5, probably 0.575. And I'm not sure what the choke was.
Right.
But you're talking about a very tight constriction on that. That comes down to the availability of a 20 gauge barrel diameter, right? So you're talking out of a 12 gauge, you're talking 0.724 is the barrel diameter on average of a 12 gauge. Out of a 20 gauge, you're talking about 0.65 in that area, right? So you're talking about, and that's not the choke, that's just the barrel itself, right? Diameter it makes a big difference down in distance too.
So one of the things that you guys talk about doing from the factory that with a lot of other choice shotguns you may have to have done secondhand is the forcing cone.
Forcing cones, yeah.
So
and someone's going to fact check me on that because the 20 gauge is not 0.65, by the way. It's smaller than that. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No,
forcing
it's
cones.
all right.
Yeah.
So what we're talking about with the forcing code, if you listen, forcing cone, you're talking about when those pellets leave that shell, the rate at which you're tightening them up to that smaller barrel.
Yep, because the chamber diameter is going to be larger than the barrel diameter, okay? Because the shell itself has got to have... So a 12 gauge is an easy way to talk about it. So a chamber diameter on a 12 gauge averages about 0.801. And now it goes from 0.801 at the chamber down to the barrel size, which is 0.724, okay? Now that has to happen somewhere. And most guns that are hammer forged and things like that, that happens in a very, very small area. And that forcing cone becomes maybe a ½ inch, maybe even smaller. So it's a dramatic decrease in size very fast. And what that does is creates a lot of spin, creates a lot of deflection. You know, if you look, shells happen so fast that you don't really ever think about slowing it down and what could happen inside of there. When you go from 0.801 to 0.724, man, things bounce, right? They spin, you lose velocity, you lose a lot of different things going through there. So the forcing cone actually elongates that area between the 0.801, which is the chamber diameter, and the 0.724. You know, we're plus 3 inches on that. So in 3 inches now, we're taking that, allowing that to kind of force itself down and choke down without doing it so dramatically, right? So it reduces spin, it reduces deformation in the pattern, and it also reduces the loss in velocity, which is a big deal, because even though a shell says it's 1,500 feet per second, that's not really the velocity when it comes out the end of your barrel. It's a lot slower than that. And you lose, and I don't know these numbers as well, there is a dramatic decrease in velocity in the first like 10 yards of a shot shell. It's crazy. Like you lose like a couple hundred feet very, very fast. And at 40, you're losing like a ton of it.
Right.
Okay. So like that's also something that comes into play when you have elongated forcing cones. And there's great guns out on the market that have forcing cones that are the entire length of the barrels, mainly in over and unders, because you create a reduce in recoil. And for us being an inertia gun, you have to have recoil, right? You have to have that kinetic energy to cycle the bolt and so on and so forth. So there's some guns out there that do have elongated forcing cones, but they're also about 10 grand. Okay. And they go from the chamber to the choke tube. Great shooting guns, great patterning guns, mostly using skeet and things like that. Your upper sporting clays and all that. They give really great patterns, but they are very, very expensive. We do it from the factory for that reason. We try to actually balance out performance and product to still be at that great price, right? So it's a very tough balancing act. And there's reasons why other people send their guns away to get the forcing cones done too. It's because you produce a better pattern by decreasing the spin. Because spin, just like anything in the world, the farther that pellet gets away from you, that spin's still there, right? So if you slow everything down into microseconds, if it's spinning coming out the barrel, at 10 yards, it's probably not going to be that bad. But at 40, that thing could be 1.5 feet away from where it started at originally because of the spin. You know, you guys shoot Black Cloud.
It's kind of like my slider.
Like your slider, right?
Oh.
So, but there's so much, and I'm very remedial on the technology side of things, and there's a lot of guys that are way smarter than me. But it when you get to talk about it and you kind of break it down into the sciences, man, it's incredible what happens. A lot of people think shotgun's just shotgun. Put a shotgun shell in it, you shoot it, and does what it does,
but
right?
But we respect that. We're not we don't think along the same way you do, and we don't understand the process as well.
That's why you
kill
more ducks than I do too.
But we do know. As long as we've been after them, we know what has worked.
Correct. And
when you talk about like how long we've been hung up on 12 gauge, 3.5 inch shells, you get to a place where you hear all this is good, this is better, this is terrible, all this and that. At the end of the day, we've learned how we can kill ducks.
100%. And you guys do it very well with what you have.
And so sometimes though you get a little complacent. And you sharing what you did, I mean, it took you a while to get me to even put it in my hands last year. And now you got both of us. I mean, we're committed this year.
Well, you know, honestly, the shots that we take, we don't hardly ever I don't take a 40-yard shot plus. My shot's between, 20 to 30. Yeah. Because I want a quick retrieve. And I mean, Axel, be honest with you, measure it. If you watch some of the videos, most of his retrieves, 95% of them are within 20 yards.
I got to tell the joke. Waterfowl guys are potentially the worst yardage measurement people in the entire world.
Well, I look at it this way.
Everything's a 70. I killed him at 70 yards, boys.
Yeah, they can have it.
But they didn't. They shot him inside the decoys, and the farthest decoy was at 30. Right? But it's just like everybody like, yeah, boy, I smoked him at 90. Yeah. Like, I know that farthest decoy was 27 yards.
Did you know that gun was shooting 90?
We're terrible at yardage.
I'm telling you, I mean, seriously, if you watch most of our videos and on our dog retrieves, they're within 20 yards.
Easy.
And a 30 yard is probably right outside the decoys, basically. You know, we kind of use our decoys as markers as well, just like everybody else. But you sold it today on me. I'm looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to the challenge. It doesn't sound like it's going to be much of a challenge, but
it won't be much of a.
It's going to be a bigger change because that 20 gauge, it just blew my mind how light that thing is.
Yeah. All right. So all the shotgun talk, let's switch gears here.
All right.
All right. And this is something that we talked and touched on a little bit today. You know, how many there we had for a Friday, man, that sale was pretty great today. There was a lot of people coming through, but we had some downtime today and we got into a discussion that I want to get your guys' opinions on, right? And we'll talk about this a little bit more because you guys are, and we're not going to talk about age. We're going to talk about seasoned, okay? We're going to say you guys are a little bit more seasoned than I am in this world because I'm still 35, right? I've only hunted for so long. I'm not an expert on anything. Trust me.
We're far from being experts.
Right. But I do want to touch on one thing. I know you guys get asked this a lot, and we get asked this a ton too because we get a lot of people that call in, hey, man, how can I become a part of the Retay family? How can I become a part of the pro staff? You guys have talked about it a good bit at length, but I want to kind of readdress where we are right now in the outdoor industry. People are constantly asking, how do I do what Dennis and Billy do? How do I start a YouTube channel? How do I start an Instagram to get people to recognize me? Right.
Right.
What is something that you would give to these guys? And they're young guys and older guys. I mean, we've had some older guys that are 45 plus who may be just getting into hunting and they're like, man, I really want to go after this, right? And I want to become somebody. What is your thought on where we are right now in the outdoor industry, as far as, you know, ambassadors and influencers and all those different words people use?
Well, my opinion, I do think it's getting better, as far as how people are treating each other.
Yep.
To begin with, when we first started, when I first started waterfowl hunting, it wasn't all rosy. You know what I mean? Yep. We had some hardcore guys out there, and you know what stems from that is greed. So to me, for a guy to start getting in this industry, if you want to be recognized, number one, you got to be willing to help people. And treat people with respect to get respect. And I think that goes a long ways with the crowd that you're around. Yeah. And then people are always watching, you know, always. So, those are things that we should be doing anyways. Yep. But I think to move forward, in a career in the hunting industry, those are the first steps a young guy needs to take. Yeah. And gain as much knowledge as he can, retain as much as he can, be willing to change as much. You know, you got to be willing to hunt with other people who might know more than you and show them respect, let them have their opportunity to maybe teach you something, even though you might not agree with it, but it's a tool that you might learn down the road that you can use to create some success. You're like, well, old man Joe did it this way. And you might leave that day thinking crazy. Well, you might get on a hunt and think, well, maybe that man wasn't so crazy. Let's try it. Let's try it. You know what I mean? Right. So,
you can never stop learning.
You can never stop learning. And, you know, and I think also what really drives the negative on our industry is it boils down to one thing: is greed. Yeah. It's, you know, it's the satisfaction of me killing all the ducks all I can. You know, I like to kill ducks. Don't get me wrong. That's my favorite thing to do.
You want to win.
I want to win. Yeah. But at the end of the day, I'm not going to win every time because I hunt public ground. And it's just like every other sport that we play. Yeah. Whether it's football, baseball, soccer, it doesn't matter. At the end of the game, when you lose or win, you walk across the field, you shake your opponent's hands, and you treat each other with respect. The next week or the next day, you're practicing to get better, either to win the next game or to continue to win.
Correct.
So in our waterfowl industry, we have lost that, but I do see it gaining back. Yeah. I've been at the boat ramps here lately, the last few years. The conversation has been a lot positive, especially with the younger guys. Yeah. Just the attitude that's changing. Yeah. And I'm glad to see that. And when change like that is, and we're positive and we're sticking together as one team as a whole.
Well, I can help.
It grows the industry,
Yeah.
and it grows room for people to grow in the industry. When the industry's shrinking, there's only so much room. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
But if everybody's out there doing the right thing, trying to grow it, there's going to be some guys that's going to have success. They're going to have a personality that people's going to gravitate to. They're going to have those success, and you can grow. And people like you are going to notice it, and you're going to make those phone calls.
Absolutely. I think that's probably one. I know you got a lot to say over here, Billy, because we talked about it.
His head's over spinning.
It's spinning right now. But I will say this on our end of things, because I have a completely different outlook on it. We're family.
Right.
I mean, I've said that manyest of times in the world. There's a reason why we work together, right? There's a reason why I enjoy to be around you guys. I love you guys. And as far as that goes, that's the biggest gravitation for me, right? So if we're going to pick somebody or we're going to, broaden our team or whatever it might be, and I hate the pro staff words and the ambassador words and all that stuff. We're all just in the same thing, right? And we all have a common goal. At the end of the day, it is a business for us, and we have to make business decisions all the time. I try to stay out of business decisions. I like to be a part of the hunt and everything else, right? It's not always about how many followers you have.
Right.
And I just want to always clear that out because we get a lot of guys. And producer Hunter back here, this is his new name, by the way, he gets phone calls, on the marketing side of things. Hey, man, how can I get y'all to sponsor me? Well, it may not be. If you have 100,000 followers on Instagram, you may not be the right fit for us, right? Maybe we don't have the same values. And maybe we don't hunt. Maybe we don't. Our core values aren't the same.
Well, what 100,000 of those followers that you have actually hunt?
Correct.
That you can have
convert into a sale, right?
Right.
We get all that stuff, and that's hard too. Because
I talked to one guy's ex-baseball player. He's trying to get into it, and he's trying to get sponsorships. Well, we looked over his page. Well, he's got 82% women.
Yeah.
Not saying that women don't hunt, but those women that were following him are not hunters.
Correct.
Right. So there again, I was trying to explain to him.
Yeah.
His value might not be as good for you because of his.
I told him he needed to go to work for one of these men clothing companies,
or do some women makeup tips or something,
Right.
And he's a great guy.
He's a wonderful guy,
wonderful guy, and he's
going to do some
really
great
hard.
things.
Yeah,
it's just his focus has been
of course,
kind of in a different area.
Yeah,
right.
I mean, that's all it is.
Yeah. And no one's trying to be
so
mean
I think
or
that's
ugly
what you're trying to get to.
Correct.
It's your following or the type of people you have following you. Yeah. Are they interested in a Retay shotgun or a shotgun period?
Correct. Absolutely. And man, we get a lot of cool emails. Hey man, it's my birthday next week. Y'all send me a shotgun?
I like it.
I like it.
Hey,
you never know. You got to shoot your shot, right?
The answer's always no if you never ask.
Absolutely. Right. I'm with you on that.
Yeah.
And by the way, we're not saying this to divert people from ever contacting us. That is not what we're saying.
No, it's just funny.
Yeah. It is funny.
It's honest conversation.
Yeah.
And Dennis nailed it. I mean, and not just in reference to your question, but really in life in general. It's so important to treat. I mean, if you spend any time in the good book at all, you know how important it is.
Absolutely.
Where you put others. And, another thing to think about really, you asked about this kind of, I don't know how you word the question, but not necessarily the state of the industry, but kind of where we're at. Yeah. How many times have you guys heard how social media has ruined hunting?
A ton.
And I would argue that.
I would too.
I'm not going to say that hasn't impacted it.
Yeah.
But really, if you think about it, it's individual, case by case, individually based on how that person utilizes that tool.
Correct.
Dennis made a great point on a podcast we recently had that talks about new guys that are coming in the industry that are paying attention. Let's say you got a private club that's does a great job of managing their ducks. They got rest areas. They don't hunt the same hole every day, and they going out and they shoot limits every day. Rusty Creasy would be. He shoots a lot of ducks during the year. He
shoots a lot.
He spends all day, every day, all year managing that property.
I was going to say he puts a ton of work into it.
That's right. Yeah. If you're a public land guy just getting into it and you're following that page, and this is what Dennis was talking about in that podcast, and you're seeing all this success. These kids go out and maybe they get, the
thing he's trying to get to is they put so much focus on the numbers.
Yeah.
They're going to get frustrated. They're going to get burned, discouraged. They're going to end up quitting. and not coming back because they're focused on the numbers. And Billy puts it the best way. Focus on the journey.
Yeah, man.
You know what I mean?
On that.
Go out and enjoy it. Be happy if you got 0 ducks or limit, and in your group of guys that you're starting out with or you're hunting with, it's about the time that you guys sharing and you're having a good time. And the duck numbers and the duck kills will come.
Oh, yeah.
It's not going to come every day.
Some of my most memorable hunts, we didn't pull the trigger.
Right.
Because there was a story came about it. There might have been we had a group of guys that hunted together, and one of those guys isn't with us anymore, right? One of my most memorable hunts was he did something dumb, right? We can't even say it on the podcast. It was something stupid, right? But we gave him so much crap about it, and we were always on. We never will forget that. That was a moment we got to share with that guy that we'll never have back.
Right.
And that's something we all will still continue to talk about to this day.
Right.
We didn't pull the trigger that morning.
Right.
Matter of fact, we broke ice for 2 hours and still couldn't get to a hole. It didn't matter. That was probably one of my most memorable hunts because I have that to share with that guy who's not here anymore.
Right.
Right. So it's not always enjoying the journey, right?
Right.
It's not always about the success or the kills or whatever. Look, I think people do get hung up on it. I think you're exactly right. They see a ton of guys who have a lot of success and then it kind of discourages them from doing what they're doing. End of the day for us, when we talk about the ambassador side or the social media side, one thing, you are correct. Social media has a lot of stigmatisms around being hurtful, but man, how much has it helped us?
Right. And it's a great tool. Like I said, individually, case by case, how you utilize.
Correct.
But more importantly, I really believe that based on the amount of people, you got a lot of guys who've been in this doing it a long time. There's a lot of guys out there that kill more ducks than Dennis and I that have been on public. They don't want to share nothing until after the season, whatever. Wherever you're at in this game, fine. At the end of the day, we all do it because we love it and we're passionate about it. And what he said about losing the hate, enjoying the journey, it's all accurate. The state of this industry, in my opinion, is in a huge transition.
That's a great... Man, this guy is a philosopher.
No, but it's true.
Well, he's right.
And if you think it from your company perspective,
definitely
the new warehouse, the new digs, you're going through a trend. Right, well, it seems like as good as you guys are at what you do, it seems like you've been here forever. What is it, year 4?
Year 4, yeah.
So
maybe he's just telling me that it feels like he's been dealing with me forever.
Right.
But honestly, think about it. And this is something Dennis and I talk about. When you back to your original question about people wanting to get into this.
Yes.
What is this?
What is this? Right.
It is right now. It's transitional period.
Yep.
We've talked about you got guys who have been in the outdoor industry for a very long time that have done television.
Yep.
They made a name for themselves.
That was their
They
outlet.
were the only thing you could watch on TV. When we were growing up, we had people that they were on TV. Those are people we watched.
You had TVs when you were growing up?
Well,
they were black and white.
I actually had one channel when I was growing up.
I did too.
But
Channel 7.
Channel 7.
When we talk about this transition, it's the same thing that I dealt with. I was in a marketing position for 30 years with a company, and we worked through that transition period of going digital with marketing.
Man.
Coming from print, television, and radio. Now you're moving in digital.
Yeah.
And you got anybody, even with just a cell phone, can go out and create a video.
Absolutely.
So I still think a lot of people, even these guys that are asking that question, there's a lot to figure out. And as fast as technology moves nowadays, maybe the transition continues.
Yeah.
But the TV aspect of it, I mean, honestly, I mean, your kids, my kids, they're not watching TV anymore.
No.
I'll be honest with you.
Unless it's football or baseball or sports.
Right.
Well, I'm watching baseball streaming. I don't even watch it on TV anymore.
I can't even watch an Orioles game. That's a whole nother podcast.
Yeah,
I'm
don't
so
get me
mad
started
about it.
on
I don't want to
blackouts
talk about
of
it.
baseball.
I live in Maryland and can't watch an Orioles games, boys.
You know how many emails I send to MLB every year? I'm dead serious. The days of blackout restrictions.
I know, that's crazy.
I can't believe you brought that up. But that transition, what I would say is, we talked about 5 things that were important at that Delta, but there was a really good time. And one of those 5 things was being humble. Yep. When you're in the duck spread, you've got to be able to say, okay, maybe the way I planned this out today ain't working. We got to be quick to make a change. If you're trying to get into this and you're trying to do this, and you're passionate. You're really passionate about this. You got to be doing something you love, first of all. If you're getting in it to make money, go on and get down the road.
Oh, man.
Oh, yeah, because you're not.
Yeah, we've been at it
I
for
do
a while
HVAC
now.
for a living,
Yeah.
and I don't get to hunt for a living. Now, there are a handful of guys, the older guys who's made their money in the past, get to do it now for a living. But to Billy's point, I do think those days have come to an end.
Yeah.
However, if you can understand what you're getting into, and you understand this is a transition, and you can understand that there are so many of these tools that we talk about that if you use them to your advantage, you can figure out ways to get involved and be successful. But you got to stay humble.
I agree.
And you got to be willing to swiftly make changes.
Yep.
And at the end of the day, the people that you work with, like us working with you, it gets back to what he said. We value that relationship, and you can answer one question, and it can really define you, where you're headed, and your relationship with the partners you want to work with. And that is, at the end of the day, I want to be, you talk about us being family, I want to be a good partner to you.
Absolutely. And the same
I want to be a good member of the family.
Yep.
What can I do? What can I do to make sure that our value is represented in this relationship? And it's just like anything else you do. But if you're just humble and you're willing to not get stuck on, hey, this is what I do, you like it or you don't like it, I think you probably burn through several bridges.
Yeah. I think there's a lot to be said for what you guys have done, right? And if anybody ever wants to get into this, the first thing they need to understand is how long and how hard you guys have worked to get to this point. Let's be very honest with ourselves.
Right.
I'm serious. Like, we can talk about the guys who if you can halfway carry a tune in a bucket, there's potential you may become an overnight success winning a TV show.
Right.
There ain't that in the hunting industry.
No.
At all.
Well, hey, combine that with the fact that it took 2 or 3 years for this video guy that, Ben's such a great guy and a great person that we did our first film with. He didn't want nothing to do with it. I didn't either, but he really didn't. He was like, look, dude, I don't know who you are. I kill ducks. That's all I do. Last thing I want is somebody doing a video. But you could do this. You could do that. I don't care. I kill ducks.
I kill ducks.
I kill ducks.
Yep.
So you got a guy, you're talking about a guy who not only has been at it so long, but he didn't want to go down that road.
Yeah.
And it just, I think when we talk about you being humble, I think you'll find success quicker. I think he's the perfect example of that.
Absolutely.
Because a lot of people are saying, I see you up here, I want in that position.
Yeah.
And that happens anywhere.
Of course.
Any sport.
Absolutely.
Any job. But the more humble you handle yourself, you carry yourself. And again, at the end of the day, I know, look, we've made some changes over the years.
Mm-hmm. You had to.
We're not working with the same partners we started with. So when I say, some of this we learned through the process, even though I really believe from day one that even though we're not always on the same page, he has a really unique and outstanding perspective going into this thing. And I support that. And from a business perspective, which I carried, and he does too on his own company, I think he's right on.
Yeah.
The other side of that is, if you're new and getting into this, don't let yourself be taken advantage of either.
Absolutely.
When you provide something for anybody, there is value in that.
Correct. And
we have so many people so eager to jump into this that I'll give you this, and I don't need nothing back.
Yeah.
Or just, I mean, that's just how it is. So I think that value what you do.
Yes.
And do your part.
Correct.
To provide what you need.
Be honest with yourself.
To make that relationship.
Be honest with yourself is the biggest thing,
And the thing too is, and I think mine and Billy's message has been this from the whole beginning. I want to leave it better than what I found it.
Absolutely.
And that means it's just not picking up trash. It's trying to change this industry as a whole. And we might just be 1 or 2% of that change. But I'm trying to leave it better than what I found it.
Absolutely.
And how we treat people, that's the most important to me. And I think that's a message that's growing. I feel like it is because I've been at the boat ramp almost 30 something years ago versus now, I've seen a big difference in the way people are starting to treat each other. Yeah. People are starting to hang out now and talk after the hunt at the boat ramps.
How simple is that too?
Yes, and it's a good time. And you know, it's and you get to meet new people and talking about relationships now over social media. Now you got people who live in a different state. Now they're swapping states, hunting together. You know, they're not.
Y'all had a guy come up today,
yeah,
who said literally to us, he said, "Man, I was just listening to you guys on your podcast driving here. Couldn't wait to meet y'all, right?
Right.
So what'd you guys do? Took a picture, swapped Instagrams, and the guy's like, hey, man, y'all come back through here. Now, first off, he's trying to get in my territory. So no problem with that. But he's like, hey, man, y'all come back through here. Give me a shout.
Right.
You don't know that guy from Adam.
Right.
But he's a friend now. He's a brother of yours.
But that's happening. That's just not happening because of us. No. I'm thinking it's happening more often at the boat ramps now than ever. Yeah. People are swapping hunts out. We see people, we see them talking about it. They're changing phone numbers now.
Yeah.
I think people are getting it because if you put yourself in that small circle and you only limit yourself to this one area where you have a guy that might come travel to your state, well, he might live in South Dakota or North Dakota.
Yeah.
Guess what? Next early season, you got a connection in that state, leaving this state, going up here and hunting with this guy.
Maybe you got a couple of pheasants too.
Yeah. And you're swapping stuff out. So I think people are starting to learn to grow and create more success is to introduce themselves to more people.
Yeah. Yeah. We got real deep.
Right.
And that's why I love this, because every time we have a conversation, we spark each other and y'all spark me, and I'm constantly learning from you guys. And in return, I hope people listening can listen to what you're saying, because we've preached it. I had a 45-minute rant on this podcast one time about telling people don't be that guy.
Right.
Okay. It was our most listened to podcast so far.
Yeah, I heard that one.
I got off on a tangent, man. I couldn't deal with it, right? There was a lot of negativity going around our area, and I just wanted to make sure people understood I am by no means a master of anything.
Right.
Okay.
Me either.
What I can say is that I've had people ask me before. Actually, I think I've talked about it before. Y'all had a guy who won a contest one time to come hunt with y'all. He was a boy from Auburn University.
Right.
Okay. And I did a phone interview with him. And I thought to myself, why in the world does this boy want to interview me? Okay. It was in a career path in college that he was trying to get into the business. He had a business path. And then he also asked about how did I get involved in the outdoor community? And I was like, man, I don't know. And then I thought about it. I was like, well, I was 32 when I got my opportunity to get into the outdoor world, because Chris Handy gave me an opportunity to jump on with Retay as we started and everything. And I thought about it for a minute, and it was honestly like the most humbling 30 seconds of an opening phone call I ever had, because he goes, how did you get this great opportunity that this is what I want to do in my life? And I'm like, well, hell, I don't know. It just happened, right? But then I thought about it for a little bit. I was like, I worked a lot of real bad jobs. I milked a lot of cows. I laid a lot of pipe for a construction company.
I wasn't going to touch that one, bro.
and that was never my fulfillment in life, right? But I did a lot of things to get to this point, to have that opportunity. It may have never come from me if I didn't get the chance to meet Chris and this whole Retay thing kicked off, right? Now I get to look. We're sitting here at a podcast, get to hang out with two of the guys who I value to be people that I look up to. Don't get too carried away here, but I do. I look up to you guys because there is a sense of everything that is right about the outdoor community, you guys have been a part of. I will say this outright. I've talked to a lot of people about a lot of different personalities in the outdoor world that people have mixed emotions on. Okay. Right. I've honestly never came across anybody who was like, man, I don't like them guys from Dr.Duck, man. I just don't like them. You know what conversations I have? Hey, man, my cousin was hunting at a boat ramp in Arkansas, and those dudes let him come hunt with them. That's you guys are setting a precedent for people every day when they hunt, and I hope it continues, and that's why we help y'all grow.
We all should be.
Yeah, and having success in that, taking those people out and meeting them at the boat ramp and having success is a big journey of ours, and proving to people that feels like they couldn't have success because they had too many people.
Yep.
If you got enough cover and you can have one or two guys added to you, do it if you got that opportunity.
You don't know. You might meet a lifelong friend.
And for you and for other people to understand, how I got in this seat, I can think back from high school, picking peas, watermelons, you know what I mean? Yep. Then getting a part-time job at a grocery store in high school, right?
Yeah.
Getting out of high school, going to a little bit of college, and going to working at the prison system for 7 years, and then
I didn't know that about you.
right, and then working
He was
there.
a bad man.
Worked there for 7 years and went to school at night to learn, HVAC.
Yeah.
And then we was doing sheet metal on the side. I'd go in the mornings, run duct work, go to work at the prison, second shift, do it every day. Then quit, started a sheet metal company, then started taking night classes for HVAC. And then the opportunity in the outdoor world for me to end up here. But it just wasn't given to me. I think God puts certain things in certain people's life to see how you handle it, makes you grow as a person. And right now you maybe be that person that you're growing to who you're going to be one day. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
I don't think me and Billy's attitude was just given to us. I think we've earned it, and we realize what's more important to us in life. And of both of us being husbands, fathers, raising kids, it all makes a big difference in your life and how you treat other people. Does that make sense?
Makes more sense than you'll ever imagine.
So I just want the young guy, if you are out there and you are going through those steps in your life, and you think, well, I want to be right here. You can be here. It just takes a lot of work.
Yeah. And a little luck.
And a little bit of luck.
And a little bit of luck.
A little bit of luck.
I don't believe in luck. You know what luck is? It's when opportunity meets preparation.
Man.
Right.
We gotta get this guy some shirts made.
Yeah. So I that's, I guess he's right, because that's just the way I explained it.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
So I think God prepared us through life to get to where we're at. Wherever you're at, it's where he intends you to be.
Absolutely. All right. Well, look, I know it's late.
Right.
There is a certain growl at this table right now because we're all starving.
I can tell you where that growl comes from.
That's no doubt. My leg over here is shaking. My hands are shaking. And
So we'll wrap this thing up. Been here long enough. Long day. Got a big day tomorrow for the second day of the sale. What do you guys have going on this season? What is the next thing that you guys are going to be doing now and getting out to hunt? We know you did a little teal hunt.
We did a little teal hunt. And we're going to let everybody watch alligator. They've already heard a little bit about the alligator bucket list item. Dennis checked off.
Yep.
We got a speckle belly hunt.
Nice.
We got one more show in October. And if you're watching this on either channel, look, we're going to be doing the Crank the Season Up Dr.Duck event in Bixby, Oklahoma again this year in October. So be on the lookout for that. We're going to do a spec hunt early November, and then of course we're kind of trying to stay close to home. We'll have the Oklahoma and Texas openers, then the Arkansas opener, of course, and we may try and slide up east side a little bit. We got our eyes on black duck maybe this year.
right.
Now we're talking.
Now we're talking.
Now we're talking.
But to be honest with you, that's really the only
and
trip too far from home we're looking at.
To let people know, the reason we didn't travel so far out is because of my work schedule with the HVAC system.
Yeah.
I landed a few more big jobs
that
I have to be so close to home so I can meet people and get things done. Unfortunately, it doesn't work out for Billy on that, but that's the reason why. I mean, seriously, I got some big projects kicking off that I'm really excited about.
Definitely.
Like I said, this doesn't pay for it.
Yeah.
That pays my bills.
You got to make rent, baby.
You got to make rent.
If you ain't keeping the house happy, then the duck hunting may not happen.
That's right.
May not happen. So, being as we're airing this on you guys' platform and ours as well, what about Retay? So obviously, the 20 gauge is a big deal this year. What else is cooking for you guys?
20 gauge Gordian is out on the market right now. We're firing through them. Even
it's nice.
They hit the market this week.
You say much. The Gordian, and this is a lot of guys that reach out to us about the Retay. They want to know the difference. You got the Masimar and the Gordian.
Absolutely.
Clear the air on that deal. What's the difference in those two?
Very easy. So one of the biggest things that we get asked as well, what's our total differences? Masai Mara 12 gauge is a 3.5-inch gun. The Gordian 12 gauge is a 3-inch gun. Okay. The Masai Mara has a couple features that the Gordian doesn't. The Masai Mara has a 2-piece receiver, so the top of the receiver is actually built into the barrel. And then also that allows us to mill out for the removable trigger system, our patented removable trigger system. That's a push button, no pins, no anything. Okay. Now going to the Gordian, that's a 1-piece receiver, and it doesn't allow us to remove the trigger, to mill out for the trigger group removal. So that has a traditional or conventional 1-pin system, right, for the trigger group. With that being said, past that mark on the 12 gauges, you're coming down to removable trigger and 3.5-inch on the Masamara, Gordian 3-inch single pin for the trigger group. The 20 gauges It just comes down to the trigger removal system. So 2-piece on the Masai Mara with a removable trigger, 1 single pin, 1 piece for the Gordian. They both still have drilled barrels with the forcing cones lengthened in them. They also still have the inertia plus bolt system, which we all know is our patented system that really does turn back into battery every single time.
It locks every time.
It locks every time. And then also the bigger thing in the long run, the Masai Mara and the Gordian both have an alloy trigger group. Okay, so a lot of people are using plastic right now. We decided, we're an alloy trigger group company, so that's what we use. It's a big deal on the production side, right? So the Gordian is the 1-piece receiver. It can get cut and milled and done and off the CNC machine as a finished product. The Masai Mara is actually a 6-step process to take that off, turn it, get the trigger removal out. It's a lot more intricacies to it. So that's where the price point difference comes in. Right. It's a 5-time longer process to make the Masai Mara. So you get a couple features. You're still both, the Gordian's a great gun. I love the Gordian a lot. We have a pump gun out now on the market that came out this year, about a couple weeks ago, actually. It's hitting the shelves everywhere now. 3.5-inch 12-gauge pump, floating 4-in technology. It actually doesn't mar up the mag tube at all. So
you're talking about the little scrapes you'll see down the tube.
Oh, yeah. Well, if you shot a pump, and trust me, we talk a lot about semi-autos and stuff. A good, reliable pump gun is still the right gun for a lot of people.
Right.
I mean, honestly, it is a good thing to have. So the pump's out right now. We got the Intalia, which is a grade 4 upgraded, little upland style, trap shooting gun. Really beautiful wood on it. We'll have those out tomorrow. We actually just got them up to Molly's for the sale. So we got a lot of things cooking, man.
Awesome.
I just got back from Turkey. It's been a week.
How's the food over there?
It's good, man. So
you ate one thing that was very interesting to me.
So I had this is my second go around, right, with this same individual product that I had for it's a breakfast thing, by the way.
Oh Lord,
it's a breakfast thing.
You got to wake up with a strong stomach.
You got to get going quick. So my first round with a certain soup. It is considered to be lamb head soup, okay?
Right.
So they kind of, if you ever ate scrapple or whatever it is, right? So they boil it down and they get a lot of the cheek meat and everything like that, and they put it into this soup. It has a very particular smell and taste to it. Big thing over there, right? I kind of checked myself out and was like, I ain't going back to it. Had a real bad experience the first time, but I did it again. So, and it worked. I was okay. Got through it. Food's good,
you
man.
lived.
I live. I'm here. Yeah, it's good.
Yeah,
so it's you do respect the country you live in. It's a great place over there. They do a lot of great production work. Our factory is completely state of the art, high end. I mean, robotics in there now. I mean, you're talking about really taking some levels up in our production. It's going to make it a lot more efficient for us and a lot more quality. And our biggest thing is quality, obviously. Like, we want to make sure we're putting the best quality product out there that we can. So they're making a ton of moves over there, enlarging the facility. They added another 50,000 square foot. It's a lot going on in Konya, Turkey right now with retail.
Awesome.
So it's been good, man.
Well, really the office nice, warehouse is great. Obviously, we can't thank you enough for all you do for us and allowing us to be part of this family.
That is right back at you, man. Everything you guys have ever done. I have more respect for you guys than a lot of people in the world. So I want y'all to know that.
Well, I appreciate it.
Yep. So we had, and this is where we wrap up, right? We always go out with one thing. We had a little special guest earlier today before we started the podcast.
Oh, yeah.
So we're going to turn it over to Levi right now. Levi, send us out of here. Take us out of here.
Jim Caesar, take it out here.
Raised in the South, I come up from nothing, I figured it out. They say when I sing, I'm the voice of the South. Give thanks to the Lord, cause I'm making it out. I can't believe I'm living my dream. Early morning flights, the skies are filled up with these whistling wings. Sights that dreams are made of. Look at God's creation. Dust coming in as we struggle to load. Kid number 2 is a hell of a load. Shots going off as they dropping the hole. It's so cold and my call keeps sticking. I'm being precise with the notes I'm picking. My lead is true, so no duck I'm missing. Foot choke, so I'm good at a distance. I shoot a retay, I shoot a retay. I shoot a retay, I shoot a retay. Brush up the blind, ain't wasting no time, yeah, we gotta grind. Get in the trees and bring a few digs and pass it to me. Ain't no Beyonce, but these ducks in formation. This ain't no heist, but I swear green's what we chasing. Hey, you ever drove a boat in the morning? Can't think, can't see, can't breathe, cause the cold and it's fog. 2 strokes and farthest. Start up your engine, get ready to party. It's a dangerous run to the hole. You know where I'm from, so you know how it goes. 25 Mercs and 25 Zooks. Outboard spit smokes when it's cold. This is a timber run, something like timber run. Dodging these logging these trees, running so fast like we racing for cash in the water, so cold and it's starting to freeze. Could you believe the sight that you see with your eyes when the mallet descend through the trees? My soul is at peace. I get so high when the ducks start to fly, I can see what the angel could see. Please do not blame it on me. The ducks don't commit, then we rearranging the deeks. Come on, let's turn up the heat. They still ain't committed, then we got emotion the deeks. Block swinging left, block swinging right, but keep him in sight. And if we not doing it right, no second chance, and we just might ruin the flight. We kicking water, ducks dropping harder, tell them kick hard. One hen gave in, but still got 10. Working circle, got me nervous. Ain't no stress, we on the X. Watch them banking, swerving, curving. We gotta finish these ducks, they coming in. Watch them run straight out of luck. I'm yelling, take them guns, I'm blazing. 1 + 10 came in, amen. That's a whole lot of mallards. Now one left out, we screaming, shout. One shot before man limit, I won't forget it, yeah. Now we headed back to the ramp, ducks in the bow of the boat. Chest sticking out like a champ, chest sticking out like a champ. I come up from nothing, I figured it out. They say when I sing, I'm the voice of the South. Give thanks to the Lord, cause I'm making it out. I can't believe I'm living my dream. Early morning flights, the skies are filled up with these whistling winds.